top skills that every adventurer, outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, just hiker, day hiker, anybody that's interested in being outside in some sort of wild place. Like the video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We've got lots of content coming out, tons of it. If you're not subscribed, if you don't hit the notification bell, you might miss it. These survival skills are not going to be delivered in order of importance, but we will start with a very important one, and that is water. You need to be able to find, you need to be able to source a clean drink of water. And if you can't find a clean drink of water, you need to find some way to purify it, filter it, make it somewhat safe to drink. So at least for the short term, it's not going to make you so sick and give you diarrhea and make your dehydration even worse. So like where we are right now, we are in Southwest Virginia, where I am from originally. And I know that if I walk downhill in pretty much any direction, if I walk downhill right here, I know that I'm going to find water. That's just the way it is around here. Anywhere in Appalachia, you're going to be pretty much in that state. Just walk downhill, you're going to find water at the bottom of that hill. Now, is that water going to be safe to drink? Maybe, maybe not. If I walk down the hill here, if I walk down this way right there, I'm going to end up at a little creek. And that little creek is going to be full of cow poop because we are near cow pastures. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just drink out of every scuzzy mud puddle and poop infested creek that you came across, like my dog Maggie here, without a concern, without a care, without a worry in the world of getting so sick that you puke your guts out later? That would be nice. Should I drink some?
Do you want to get sick for the family reunion? Good gracious.
My guts are as tough as Maggie's. Here's a controversial subject. Everywhere I go, my wife always gets on to me about drinking wild water without purifying it, filtering it in some form or fashion. And I see it as strengthening my immune system. Some people would call that really dumb. They'd call me an idiot. However, I have done this all over the place, all over the country. If I did it in other countries, I did a little bit in Mexico.
Oh my God.
Just a little. I'm selective. I'm very selective of where I drink the water. Like obviously, like right here, this water is straight downstream of a cow's behind.
Yeah, tasty. Pretty.
So I'm not gonna drink that. That would probably be stupid. Could I drink it and not get sick? Possibly in a very small quantity, but it's not really worth the risk, and I don't really feel like drinking cow poo water. Anyway, the flavor is just not, it's not my style, it's not my jam. By sampling a little bit of wild water everywhere I go, I'm introducing new microbes into my system, and I'm building up a tolerance to those microbes. So if I should need to drink water in some sort of real life survival, perhaps just emergency type situation, I perhaps will be a little more tolerant of it and may not get sick. That's just a theory that I'm testing on myself. Do I encourage you to do that? Absolutely not. Do not do that. I do not condone this behavior. I do not encourage you to do it because there's a good chance that you will get sick. So I am taking it upon myself to, at my own risk, to do such things for your enjoyment. In the comments section, you can let me know if you think that's a good idea or a bad idea. Is my scientific experiment with the microbes in my guts a terrible idea? Am I going to regret this in the long term? Water gonna make me sick? In the first day, maybe not. Second day, maybe not. Third day, probably. I'm probably gonna get E. coli or some other waterborne bacteria that's going to make me really, really sick, vomiting, diarrhea, and it's gonna make my dehydration even worse. So I need to come up some way to be able to filter it, boil it, purify it in some way. In my belt, I have a bag, a plastic bag, basically a food grade plastic bag right here with water purification tablets. Now, would you want to be drinking out of a plastic bag all the time? No, of course not. But we're talking about a survival emergency type situation where I'm running really low on hydration and I'm suffering. And I need a drink of water that's not going to make me sick. I can take some of this nasty, scuzzy creek water down here that the cows have pooped in. I can fill it up. I could pull this plastic bag that's out of my belt. It holds 1 liter of water, or about a quart of water, and I could pop in one of these water purification tablets into this bag, wait about 4 hours, and then I've got water that's not going to make me sick.
Liter of water. Okay.
Yeah, not much of a tablet anymore, huh?
Yeah, after a while they just come powdered, which, hey, maybe it's even better that way.
Yeah, it dissolves fast.
A hair thing. 1 twist over, 2 twist over.
Gooseneck the top a little.
Oh, that's a good term. I've never heard that, but I like that.
And at least it will kill all of the waterborne pathogens. It won't do anything as far as chemicals that might be in the water. So you still need to be a little bit selective of where you're drinking your water unless you have a really solid way of purifying it. But for short-term survival, those chemicals are probably not going to make me sick either. So this water bag and this water purification tablets don't do anything for chemicals that might be in the water, so we still have to be selective of the water source, but it will kill all the nasty growing microbes that are in there, and it'll not make me sick from, you know, getting diarrhea or vomiting and make me more dehydrated. So, and that's really, really handy, and I don't even know I'm carrying that because it's in my belt. And if you're the day hiker type or the weekend adventurer or getawayer, you can have this on you at all times, all day long, every single day, regardless of where you are, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to prepare for it. You don't have to go through all the checklists and stuff. Just have it on you and be ready to go. So at a minimum, carry some sort of metal container, a single-walled canteen, or just a canteen cup. That's what I like. I like a Stanley cook pot with a metal lid and a nice little folding collapsible handle, so I can put it in the fire and I can boil my water and make it safe to drink. That's what I prefer. Or some sort of water filter like a Grail, that's my preference, or a Sawyer Mini. Those are my two favorites that I like to carry with me. So for water purposes, make sure you have the supplies, the materials on hand with you to make your water safe regardless of where you are. Fire. Everybody takes fire for granted these days. Our ancestors did not take it for granted. Most of the time what they did when they're in their small communities, in their villages, they had a fire going that pretty much ran all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had at least a coal burning in that fireplace because they didn't take their fire for granted. Primitive fire techniques such as friction fire, bow drill, hand drill, fire plow, all the things that you visualize when you think of primitive fire, those are not guarantees. Even for our ancestors, even for the people that have been doing it their entire lives, practicing those skills, it is not a guarantee. You can't just walk out into the woods right now and say, I need fire, and then make fire. It's a very time-consuming, labor-intensive process that is weather-dependent, heavily weather-dependent, and resource-dependent. I may not be able to find the supplies, the materials that I need in this area. I might have to travel quite a long ways to get those materials to enable me to make fire. If it's pouring down rain, I don't care who you are. I don't care how skilled you think you are. If it's pouring down rain right now and you don't have a legit shelter, you are not making friction fire. So having a Bic lighter in your pocket right there with some duct tape. I keep duct tape wrapped around my Bic lighter because I can light that on fire and it would extend the flame. I don't waste the fuel in my lighter. I can put that underneath my kindling, and that duct tape will burn for a long time and dry out any wet marginal kind of kindling that I might have or be able to find. I also have a ferro rod, a ferrocerium rod in my belt with a striker that I can strike, and I've got tinder tabs. I've got little fire plugs, waterproof fire tinder in my belt, so I can use that at any given time and I can guarantee fire. Funny story, not a survival situation, but I did save the day. I used one of my fire plugs. There they are. Here's one. So here it is. Here's a half of a fire plug. I used the other half, and here is my ferrocerium rod with the striker right there. I was at a little girl's birthday party and nobody, including me, had a lighter. And everybody was like, how are we supposed to light the birthday candles? I think she was turning 4 or 5, forget what it was. But anyway, there were 4 or 5 candles on this birthday cake that needed to be lit, or the birthday just wasn't going to happen. And so I saved the day with my Wazoo kit in my belt. I was able to strike that little fire plug, that little orange fire plug, and light the birthday candles because nobody had a lighter. Not a single person at this party had a lighter, including me, but I was able to make that happened and saved the day. She turned 5 and life was good. Cake was eaten. All people rejoiced. These are cherries. Foraging. A lot of people put foraging and food finding and hunting and fishing and all those things at the very top of their survival priority list. You can go a long time without food, and it is definitely not at the top of the list. Is it important? Sure. I do think it's important that you can locate, identify wild edibles, medicinal plants. I think you should have the skills necessary to go catch a fish in the creek, to hunt the deer, do all those things for sure, no question, but it's definitely not high on the list. Fire, water, and then as we're getting to shelter, those are going to be your three really top key priorities in almost all, specifically when you're talking about a wilderness survival situation. Shelter is a key survival skill. Being able to find a shelter in a wilderness setting is slim. I mean, everybody sees the pictures in the survival handbooks of being in hollowed out logs or in caves and stuff like that. You're not going to find something like that. And if you do, you're very, very lucky. And it might be, something might be living in there that's much larger and has bigger teeth than you to start with. So you may want to avoid something like that in the first place. So you need to be able to, one, be smart enough to bring a shelter with you, because regardless of the natural resources that are surrounding you, you will never be able to make something as waterproof as a tarp. Even a crappy blue tarp is better than anything that you're going to make out of spruce boughs. And it's a shelter out of spruce boughs is going to take you hours and hours and hours to make it water resistant. And it's time consuming, it's energy consuming that you may or may not have in a survival situation. And what if you're injured? Everybody takes that for granted too. They think, oh yeah, no matter what, I can be out there and I can build myself a shelter. Can you? Can you if your leg is broken? You've rolled your ankle, your arm is busted up, you've injured your eye. Maybe, maybe not, or you're severely hypothermic. The chances of you being able to do that successfully might not happen in every single situation. So carry something with you. My preferred shelter, minimal shelter, is just a poncho. I carry it with me all the time, everywhere I go. Well, obviously not right now. I'm not very far from home. But if I was backpacking or hunting or fishing or whatever, camping, I would have myself some sort of minimal shelter, which is usually a poncho. Know how to set them up effectively, efficiently, fast. Because what if I need to set this shelter up in a hurry? I don't want to be fumbling with things, learning how to tie knots for the first time. I want to know how to set this thing up, lickety-split, so I can move on to the next priority. Now let's talk about our post-apocalyptic doomsday setting. Would I want to camp out in something like this? Me, personally, no. I'd feel so much safer, much more comfortable sleeping on that mountain over there than in this building. One, it may fall down at any given moment. Two, there's probably a lot of critters and rodents and stuff living in something like this. Three, it's going to be, any human being is going to recognize this and be attracted to it as some sort of shelter. It's a point of interest, a place of interest. And I am not interested in camping out in something like this, really regardless of the situation. As long as I've got some sort of minimal shelter on me, if I'm dressed appropriately, this is not going to be someplace that I'm going to stay. So fire, water, and shelter. If you can master those three things, regardless of where you are, if you can make those three things happen, I think you're going to be ahead of the game. There's an endless number of skills that we could and should be working on getting better at. But if you can first master water, fire, and shelter, you're going to be in the top percentile of people out there, of outdoorsmen, especially your weekenders, your weekend getawayers. Learn to build a good shelter with modern materials. Learn how to build one with natural materials. Learn how to start fires in any and all conditions in lots of different ways. Learn how to find and purify, filter, boil water. Now, as usual, guys, leave comments for me, ask lots of questions. I'm always grateful for those, and I try to respond to every single question out there. Maybe not every single comment, but if there's a legitimate question, I will do my best to respond to it and answer that question in a timely fashion. And as usual, guys, what's the worst that could happen? Let's go on 3.